All right, Algebra 1A students, welcome to your video on Lesson 1-4. And today we're going to look at some properties of real numbers and then what that means for simplifying some expressions. Okay, so properties of real numbers are relationships that are always true. Okay, so properties, when we write them down in our notes, we know they always are true. Every time, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, they're always true. Okay. We also call them rules for math class, because they're always true, always can be expected to happen. Okay. And then we can also talk about two expressions being equivalent. That's an important word to write down in your notes, please. Equivalent, it just means equals. Okay, equivalent means equals. Have the same value. Have the same value. Okay, equivalent means they have the same value. They're exactly the same. They're equal. Equivalent expressions. Okay. So, a couple properties I want you to write down in your notes. The first one is called the commutative property. Commutative property basically means when we do addition and multiplication, we can flip the two numbers around and do them in the other order if we want to. Okay? So like, here's an example for you. 18 plus 54 is equal to 54 plus 18. So flipping the 18 and the 54 around the plus sign does not change anything. Those are equal still. They have the same value. Okay? So that's called the commutative property when we flip around the two numbers. Commutative property means to flip around the two numbers. Okay? Flip the two numbers. And that only works for addition and multiplication. And the same thing is true for the associative property. Okay? The associative property basically is when we have parentheses around two numbers and then another number added on in the same way, or two numbers multiplied in parentheses and another number multiplied on. What the associative property says is we can move the parentheses to the other two numbers if we want to the B and the C instead of the A and the B, and do those two numbers first, add them together, then add on A, instead of doing A plus B first and then adding on C. So associative just means we can move parentheses. Okay, we can move parentheses here. That's what associative means. The only time, though, that we can move parentheses is, please notice that our sign must always be the same. Plus sign, or multiply sign has to be the same. Okay, you can't do it if one sign is plus and one sign is times or anything like that. Okay, has to be the same sign. So please make sure these properties get down in your notes. I would write this down, and then maybe a couple examples of each one where we've flipped the numbers around or we've moved the parentheses. So make sure that stuff gets in your notes. And let's go on and look at what this is going to mean for simplifying some expressions. Okay? Now, we may be asked to simplify some expressions using these properties, and these are expressions that I think we have simplified before, but now we're just putting a name to the property that we're doing. Okay? So here, in this first example, letter A, we are given 5 times in parentheses 3 times n. Okay, so this really is 5 times in parentheses 3 times n. Okay, so notice the parentheses are around the 3 and the n. Now we would like to be able to combine the 5 and the 3 and times those together. So all we have to do is move the parentheses, which we can definitely do based on one of our properties from the previous page, the associative property. We can move the parentheses to be around the 5 and the 3 instead of around the 3 and the n. Okay, so that's exactly what they've done right there. They've done 5 times 3 in parentheses first, then we'll times by n. And 5 times 3 we know is 15, so our answer is 15n. Okay? Now they give us another example here which is very similar to the ones you'll see in your homework assignment, or in your practice problems, I should say. And they actually need us to use both properties here to be able to combine something that we can combine. Okay, they tell us 4 plus 7b first in parentheses, then plus 8 at the end. The problem is because of the b that's on the 7 here, we can't actually add 4 plus 7b because those are not like terms, okay? They're not like terms at all. One has a b and one doesn't. So what we would like to do is combine the 4 and the 8, but they're so far apart that we have to try to get them closer together. Okay, one way that we can do that is to flip around the 4 and the 7b. We can flip those around this plus sign and put them in the other order. That's the commutative property from the last page. So notice they've changed 4 plus 7b to now be 7b plus 4. That's okay because we just flipped them around the plus sign. Okay, and now at least the 4 and the 8 are next to each other. The problem is the 4 is still in parentheses with the 7b. So after we use the commutative property to flip them around, now we move the parentheses over to around the 4 and the 8 using the associative property. Okay? And then once we have 4 and 8 in parentheses, we can add those together, certainly, because neither one of them has a variable on it. So 4 plus 8 gives us 12, and our answer is 7b plus 12, which we cannot simplify anymore because one is a b and one does not. Okay? Now, I would like you to try this one right here. I'd like you to try letter B, 6 plus 4h plus 3. Okay, we would like to put together the 6 and the 3, but we can't right now because they're so far apart. So you have to do two things in order to make this possible to combine the 6 and the 3. And then I'd also like you to tell me what properties you use. I'll give you a hint. They're right up there. Okay? So show me what you would simplify this down to. Tell me which properties you used, and then come back and I'll show you what we should get. Okay, what we should end up with here is 9 plus 4h. 9 plus 4h. But in order to get there, we had to use two properties. First, we had to use the commutative property. Right? And the commutative property would allow us to flip the things in the parentheses. So it would be 3 plus 4h instead of 4h plus 3. And then the associative property is going to allow us to move those parentheses. So do parentheses 6 plus 3, close parentheses, then add on the 4h. Okay, and now from there is where we simplify down to 6 plus 3 is 9 plus 4h. So we should have this, and we should somewhere on our paper have commutative property first, and then associative property second. Okay, commutative associative leads us here. If you have questions about simplifying expressions at all, using these properties or what these properties mean, please make a note to ask me in class tomorrow, or if you have questions about equivalent expressions, please make a note to ask me in class tomorrow. Otherwise, that's all I have for you. Have a wonderful night.